Hi, this is Kelli Callis of That Girl Zine. So this girl Ava is an apprentice at LA Public Library, and she wanted to interview me about a zine collection that I donated last summer. So I thought it would be fun to record the interview and post it, just because these are questions that I think are interesting and other people want to hear. Okay, the first question is, how did you acquire your zine collection, and what inspired your interest in zines? So my interest in zines, well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I used to hang out in Hollywood all the time, and there was always free magazines at record stores. And so there was Zendik Farm, Ben is Dead, and then of course the big LA Weekly and things like that. And a lot of the zines in LA were like bigger, like Flipside, kind of glossy, and seemed really professional. When I moved to San Francisco, I went to San Francisco State University, and I met a bunch of girls who really got me into the Riot Girl movement. And they were basically like, you can do whatever you want, you can play drums, you could do your own zine. And I was like, wow. And I remember I was really inspired by this guy Eggplant, because he had a zine called Absolutely Zippo, and he used to go to every show and he would sell his zine. And I just thought it was a cool way to make friends, because you go up to people that look cool and you're like, hey, do you want to buy my zine? And so the very first issue of my zine was called That Girl, and it was like a compilation of just silly pictures and just silly thoughts. And I sold it for 5 cents, because I thought, oh, who can refuse me for 5 cents? I didn't want to give it away for free. I didn't want to charge $1, because then people would reject me. So I thought 5 cents, who could resist that? And so that's how I got into publishing zines, as a way to make friends in a new city that I was, kind of lonely in, because I had met a bunch of people, but I didn't really know anybody. My zine collection is really a lot of it is through Action Girl, which was a new newsletter by Sarah Dyer out of New York. It was a place for women published comics and zines to find each other. I also posted a Classified and Maximum Rock and Roll. I also did zine reviews for Maximum Rock and Roll. I also was listed in Fact Sheet 5 and Zine World and other places like that. So most of my zines came from trades that people would write in, and they would want to trade my zine for their zine. But yeah, some of them are from the zine reviews that I was doing for not only MRR, but also for Zine World. I did reviews for them as well. The next question is about the collection I donated, and it says, many of the zines contain notes, letters that are addressed directly to you. It seems as though a lot of relationships were built from either trading zines or interacting with the zine makers. Are you still in contact with fellow zine makers, collectors? How did those relationships impact you or the zines you were interested in? Yeah, some of my good friends in person, I met through zines. My friend Erica, who did a zine called Power Candy, and she did a zine distribution called Pander. We were friends before zines, but zines really solidified our friendship. I met Robin Crane, who did Sweetheart Zine and was in the band Foxfire. We became in-person friends, and I met a lot of people through zines, traveling, meeting face-to-face, and a lot of them were still in contact on Facebook or Instagram. So besides Erica and Robin, most people I don't see very often, but I see them on my feed and we interact a lot. And there's actually a couple people that I'm friends with on Facebook that I've never met in person, but we knew each other through zines. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so most of the zines that I was interested in were like zines that my friends made or friends of friends made. So we did have like a tight little community. And it was a cool way to feel like you belonged with a group, even though everybody was living all over the United States. So that was neat. Okay, next question is, what kind of work do you do currently? How did zine making and zine collecting impact the work you do today? So my day job is I'm an English teacher, and for high school. And I would say I've tried to include a little bit of zine stuff in there, in like encouraging their own creative writing and, you know, taking an argument on stances. But I'm not like other teachers who fully go crazy about zines and have them make full zines and like run zine libraries. I think because I was a personal zine writer, I am a little hesitant to have my high school students know about that side of me, because it is very personal, and I did talk about, you know, grown up stuff, so I'm a little distant from that. I am an aspiring writer. I wrote a book, I wrote a memoir about my teaching, and one of my friends who read it said it was too zany, that it got too in the weeds with details. And so it's actually been really hard because I've been trying to edit it for years. I wrote it really fast because it just like poured out of me. But the editing process is just, oh my gosh, because I am worried about the impact it will have on my career, if people will like it, or if they'll be mad at me, or if the school board will be upset with me, which is so different from zines, where you're just like, I'm going to publish whatever I want and I'm going to find my target audience and I don't care what people think. Whereas with a book, you're like, oh my gosh, how's this going to impact my livelihood? Next question. I know you have a zine called That Girl. I read number 16, which was in your donated collection, and I loved it. Yeah. How long have you been making that zine? Did the earlier editions also contain stories about your life, or were they about something different? What do you enjoy about making that zine? So I started in 1993. So I went to San Francisco in 1992, met a bunch of really cool people, and they really inspired me to get involved in the DIY scene. And it was that summer when I was back home and I was really bored, and I was like, well, this is a perfect time to make a zine. So 93. The very earliest editions, I really wanted to appeal to a wider audience. So it was a lot of humor, a lot of collage. I wrote articles that I thought people wanted to read about, like feminism and other important topics like that. The more I started publishing, though, the more I realized it was more gratifying to write my personal stories and to talk about my life. And oddly enough, the more I focused on myself, the more people seemed to connect. And so when I was trying to write to like a broader audience, like, hey, you know, it didn't gel as much as me like being like, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm just gonna type it all out and slap it in some glue stick and hope somebody likes it or whatever. What do I enjoy about making that zine? This is going to sound weird for someone who's very text heavy, but I love the imagery of that zine, just because I've always collected papers, just photographs and clip art and just weird stuff, rubber stamps. And so, I love writing, and I love the catharsis of writing, but I also love being able to use these old-timey pictures and like advertisements and, you know, coloring books and just collecting weird imagery to enhance the text. That was my favorite part. One of my favorite. Okay, next question. I noticed that your collection contains a lot of Riot Grrrl zines, or zines that take place around that time period. Were you involved with the Riot Grrrls? All right, so story time. When I moved to San Francisco, they were going to start a Riot Grrrl Bay Area faction. And I remember getting on the BART, and it might have been the first time I was on BART by myself. And I remember getting off at Ashby. And I remember seeing a bunch of like cool looking girls with like cool hair and like cool outfits, and thinking, oh, I wonder if they're going to the Riot Grrrl meeting. But I didn't talk to them. They didn't say anything to me. I basically trailed them about, 100 feet behind them the entire time as we walked to the place where they had this Riot Grrrl meeting. And I just remember being violently sexually harassed by a couple of dudes on the street. And it was just really weird, because I was just like, what? Like, this is such a Riot Grrrl moment. And like, the girls didn't do anything. And I felt really helpless, and it just kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth. When I got to the meeting, Most everybody who showed up didn't want to have a Riot Girl faction. And so they decided to just call it like the Bay Area Women's Group or something like that, because they didn't want to have the label of Riot Girl because it was too polarizing, because there was a lot of media attention on Riot Girl, and it just made Riot Girl seem so stupid. Like, it's just about wearing barrettes in your hair and little dresses and acting like a little kid and stuff like that. So they didn't like the infantilization of feminism. So I joined that group, and I loved that group, and that group was really fun. And it was ultimately cool because it wasn't just like, girls with, barrettes and like, vintage clothes and stuff like that. So it was cool in that aspect. So most of my Riot Girl connections were through the mail. Like, I was very, very active. I loved supporting other Riot Girl chapters. I loved, buying their merch and buying their zines and listening to Riot Girl music. But as far as like in person, it wasn't quite there for me, except for when I would go home to LA. Occasionally I would go to Riot Girl LA meetings, and those girls were fierce. Like, they had meetings, they were very diverse, they were very outspoken, they were very passionate. And, I was very envious of the scene that they developed. Next question. Do you have any favorite zines within the collection you donated to the LA Public Library? I only donated zines that I don't read. Like, well, I don't read zines very much anymore anyway, but I kept all of the stuff that I like. So if I knew you in person, if I had a close friendship with you via pen paling, if I really admired you, I kept those zines. So, sorry. Don't look at the titles in the collection, because those were the ones that I was like, all right. So, sorry. I think I did donate a couple of, like, famous Riot Girl zines, like Girl Germs or Jigsaw or something like that, because I was a fan of like Bratmobile and Bikini Kill, but I didn't know them personally. And so most of my personal collection at my house is stuff where I had a personal relationship with the person who wrote it. So I would say those would be my favorite then. And it says, last question, is there any other information you'd like to share about yourself or your zine collection? No, I'm just really grateful that the LA Public Library decided to accept my donation. It was, just sitting in my storage unit for many years, and some of this stuff is just like, just old and water damaged. So I was really impressed that they came out and that they saw a lot of value in the collection, and that they wanted to archive all that stuff. I think it's such a cool project, and I'm really proud to be part of it. Bye.